Hi, I'm Zini Abraham. Today we're going to try our hand at lilacs, and this is what you're going to need for this project. You will need a small piece of canvas, or you can use paper. You are going to need some Q-tips, and if you're worried about keeping them together, the smallest rubber band that you can find will help us keep them all confined like this. So we're going to paint with these, and I have smaller rubber bands, but I couldn't find them. This will work for today. And we're just going to use them like this and paint. So if you have other rubber bands and if you're working with particularly small children or people that can't keep these together because of their finger mobility, this is a great way to create the brush that we're going to need out of the Q-tips. The other thing that you're going to need is a piece of saran wrap or plastic of any sort that's bigger than the canvas or piece of paper that you're going to use. For the paint colors, you're going to need 2 colors of purple, some white. The background is yellow and green, any colors of your choice. I have a darker color here so that I can add it to my purple, and I have some brown that we're going to use just for some sticks. The sticks are something that we paint with a piece of cardboard, so you just need a piece of cardboard just that you can hold on to, and something that's about 1 inch wide. A brush, a small brush would be nice and handy to have. And you might, if you want to stir your paints, you may need a spoon. Lastly, we're going to use a toilet paper roll to make some leaves. So let's get started. All right. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a background. And we're just going to use a little bit of paint. It needs to be, about the size of a quarter, I think. You can always add a little more if you feel like you haven't covered the canvas very well. So I have 1 dot of yellow and 1 dot of green, and I like to add just a squirt of white right on top of those to make it all kind of blend together a little bit better. So this is a fun trick because it gives you some really cool textures, and it's kind of fun just to press and see what happens. So we're going to take and blend these the best we can, and the concept here is that we're going to try to keep the top yellow and the bottom part a little more green. So we spread this just as far as we can, and then we lift it up and we move it and spread it a little bit further. So we're just going to keep lifting it and moving it all over the canvas. You may want to put down a tablecloth as you're working. And we can see that we're going to get the yellows and the greens to blend in together, and that gives us some really interesting texture behind this bush that we're going to do. So I'm going to just keep moving this around until the whole thing has a little bit of paint on it. And I don't have to be very particular about exactly how it looks, because we're kind of want this whole dotted texture. Some parts are darker. You can then take this edge and kind of roll the edge in too, so it has a little more of a finished look. So every little bit of paint on that plastic is going to get used up here, and just kind of tap it in wherever you feel it's too light, and paint it all the way around. Just get all that paint off of that plastic as best you can. Alrighty, so do that top. There we go. Now this is done for, so we can get rid of that. All right, now we're going to take the green that we used, and I'm going to put a little squirt of it here on my paper plate. And for the leaves, if you like, you can cut this in half if you need to. If you don't have a big supply, I happen to have more than anyone could probably ever use because I can't seem to throw these things away. And I'm going to pinch it, because pinching it puts it into the shape of a leaf. So I've just given it a nice pinch here, and then I'm going to roll these edges into my green, just like this, and get it kind of goobered up. All right. Now, I'm looking at this and I kind of have a natural arch going this way on my paper, so we'll turn this around and I'll paint it upside down for you. And I'm just going to take and put these leaves right in here as if this is the edge of the bush, and I'm going to keep dabbing on a little bit more. Some of them are going to be out beyond. I'm looking at this yellow as though it's kind of the sky showing through, and I want to just have the outline of the leaves kind of going all down the canvas here. And I'm not very concerned about where I'm putting them, I just want to make sure they're there. This is going to be the bush, and our bulk of our flowers are going to come from this side, so I don't really need many more than that. All right, now we want 2 different colors of purple for this project. And the reason, and you can mix the colors if you want, if you've only got one color purple and you want to add a little bit of pink and white to one and lighten it up, or you can take your purple and add a little bit of blue. So I've got something here called Night Sky, and that's what I'm going to use for my darker color. So I've got the light color there, and I'm gonna dip into both of those. So really I've got this lighter color purple and those 2 purplish blues going on. To start with, I'm going to use those 5 Q-tips that I bound together with the rubber band. You can easily hold 5 in your hand if you want to. And we're going to think about, and I want these to be a little bit darker, so these are the background ones, the ones that are coming out the deepest part of the bush. Now, we're going to take and dip these nice and get them nice and full of paint. And I'm going to start by making something that kind of looks like a Christmas tree. So we just keep, these are kind of fun, dabbing and dabbing, just keep, and we want it to be pointed at the top, and then we want it to kind of just flop over. So this needs to be much wider here, because the lilacs are just something like this, and you can see that it's nice and wide down here at the bottom. And I'm dipping into these different colors, and I want all the different colors on there. So I'm going to try to put about 5 different points from the lilacs on here, and I'm going right up over some of those leaves, because those are just background. And they're not filled in right now, but they can be. And we're going to just make a point there. I think we're going to need another one right here for sure. Now this side over here off of the canvas is the bulk of the bush. So we're just capturing the very tip edges of the lilac tree that's coming out. And we just keep adding in our dark blues back in here, down into the bottom. And we'll have a smaller tip that comes up like this. And now I got 4, so I like to have some odd number. And I might just make a little piece of one that comes out here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to look at it and say maybe we just need a little piece of another one that comes up here. And since we painted the side, we can just kind of give a little bit of purple down this edge. So now we're going to dip into our lighter color, and we can use the same Q-tips if we want to. And we're going to give a little bit of highlight of these lighter colors. And you might look at it and say, this isn't quite what I was going for at this point, but don't panic yet. We just want to be kind of blending in and giving it just this, we're going for kind of an abstract look anyway. Okay. And we've just given a little bit of light color here to all of the different lilac blooms. And now I'm going to take the white, because the white is going to be the highlight. And for this one, I'm just going to use 3. And I'm going to think about how the light might be hitting the tops of these blossoms. So we're just going to dab that in there a little bit. We don't want that too thick. So we'll take this, and I like to think about where that light is going to be hitting. So we don't want to put it on the underside. We want to have the white parts towards the top, but not exactly along the top. Like just along this ridge would be weird because the blossom is round. So the part that's going to catch the light is not the back side, but this top edge here. So as you can see, we're just going to add. This is great for small fingers too. I have found that when you give artists who question their abilities brushes, they tend to overthink it and sometimes can go a little crazy with their brush. And when you suggest painting with things that are a little more untraditional, like Q-tips or toilet paper rolls, people tend to be a little more intrigued and less critical of what they might be able to accomplish with such a primitive item. And they tend to be a little bit happier about the outcome when they're done. So as you can see, we've got a nice bit of color. We've given a highlight here to some of those darker colors that we did. And if you're feeling like, it could use a little bit more dark, you can always go back in, and this is why we have multiple Q-tips here. We can always go back in with our darker colors and just give a little bit more low light here. Just a little more here and there, wherever you think it needs it. All right, now we have that piece of cardboard that we haven't used yet, and I like to kind of just attach, as I am able, the leaves to and the branches, and this is just a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to take my cardboard and dip it into the brown, and I'm just going to add wherever I think we might need just a little hint of brown connecting stick. Oh, that's a little more than I wanted. Just a little bit here and there. You don't need very much, and you just want it kind of down here. Just one more color. Just a hint of what's in there. The cardboard has this cool little ridge in there, so you don't get a solid print typically, which is great. And so you get the same kind of look that the Q-tips were leaving. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to do, we'll take some more of this yellow and we'll mix it with a little of that green. And I'm just going to take the brush that I suggested that you need and a tad bit of water and water this down just a little bit. And we're just going to define those leaves just a little. So the ones that we can still see, we can just give a little more solid color to. And this is kind of at your discretion. And you can tell I'm never very particular about how exact I do it. These are for fun, something to put out in the springtime. I need a little more water. If your paint doesn't smoothly flow off your paintbrush, it's probably because it's too thick. Oftentimes the paint is pretty thick when it comes right out of the jar, so just add a little bit of water. Be careful that you're not pulling that purple in to your leaf, but as you go, you're just going to add these little bits here and get this painted in. And it's kind of fun to do a project where you didn't really have to use a brush hardly at all. You could probably paint these with Q-tips if you wanted to, but most people have a brush around. And you can see that now those leaves are starting to look like there was a little bush behind there. And it's nice when your brush has a little bit of both colors on it so that you're getting kind of a mix of the yellow and the green as you paint. It looks a little more painterly. And you can give a little highlight to what you think is the top part of the leaf. And there we go. Just one more left here. And that's still a little bit wet on the edge, so as I'm painting, it's just blending in and looking less like a stamp and more like I meant for it to be that way. And you can leave the paint as thick as you want, or you can thin it down a little bit. All right, so there we go. A fun little quick paint with Q-tips and toilet rolls, lilacs. Thanks for joining us.